Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Game Master and welcome to my channel. This video was going to be part of my story analysis, but I decided to hold off on that and make it its own video. The story analysis was going on quite a bit too long, and I just wanted a video to talk about this aspect of the story. And I do want to thank Games as Literature 101 for turning me onto this part as well. But I'm going to be adding a few of my own arguments and arguments that he didn't have in his videos, and throw in a few of my own opinions as well. Anyways, is Joshua, the god of Shibuya, the villain the whole time? I mean, all of Neku's suffering through the game are basically at his own hands. And he does say he wanted to destroy Shibuya. And was Shades here, who is for all parts and purposes the devil, the real villain? Or is he just a misguided hero who just wanted to save Shibuya and went on about it the wrong way? The answer to that, my friends, is no, no, and no. So what is going on here? Well, here are my thoughts as someone who is not a biblical scholar, but I have read a bit of it and my thoughts on it. Although the game does not go out and say that the composer is God, just that he's some kind of deity that rules over Shibuya, and we do find out there are higher planes and beings than him. But for the sake of the allegory that is shown here, Joshua, for all sense and purposes, is God, and Shades, the conductor here, is Lucifer, shown not only by illustrations of things that a villain or a devil would wear: dark clothes, black hair, and of course the shades, but also the fact that he can transform into a dragon, which can also sometimes be linked to the devil. And before you go, wait, wouldn't they be enemies and not partners? Again, part of the World Ends With You storyline is A Christmas Carol. The other part is the story of Job. Who is Job, you're asking? Well, Job is basically an Old Testament story, and Job was someone who was prosperous, but at the same time a very good-natured guy who was giving and very helpful to his community, and he was someone who was loved by God. He was basically the complete opposite of Neku at the beginning of the story. The story goes, Lucifer challenged God that the only reason Job here was such a good person was he had received a lot of help from God and a lot of personal possessions. If you took away everything that was given to him, he would turn around and despise you and become a miserable wretch. So, answering the challenge, God agrees to it, provided Lucifer does not allow Job to die. And he lets Lucifer take everything: Job's family, house, fortune, looks, and even his health are all stripped away from him, leaving him basically a naked old wretch who is in pain on the side of the road. But when Job would not break or curse God or change for the worse, God eventually tells Lucifer to back off. He then explains a few things to Job about the universe, and then restores everything lost to Job. And that's an overly simplified version of the story, at least. And back to the Old Testament days, Lucifer wasn't evil incarnate. He was basically a giant jerk who hated humans. And he was going out of his way to show our weaknesses. And we see that in the conductor here. He's out to save Shibuya, sure, but not the humans in it. He tells Neku and Beat that they are not fit to look at the composer. His way of saving humans is to basically take away their free will and basically their humanity. And finally, when he is defeated, he does not mourn for the people who he thinks are about to be killed, but for the buildings and city streets that will be destroyed. Basically, while Shades was in his own way trying to save Shibuya, he wasn't trying to save the people or the humanity in it. He isn't some misunderstood or misguided hero. He is definitely a villain that had to be stopped. But nonetheless, Neku's role in the conflict and their debate centers around that, as they both find ways of aggravating and challenging Neku in a similar way that God and Lucifer challenged Job, just to see if he will break, see if he will give up, and see if he can change. As far as Joshua is concerned, it wasn't that he wanted Shibuya to be destroyed for some selfish reason, and he doesn't do the Reaper games for kicks either. He is actually wanting the best for humanity, even if his methods can be a bit twisted. The whole point of the Reaper's game is to make sure that people who are worthy of a second chance can get it, and by raising to the challenges become better people who might become leaders in their fields. Most of the game's challenges usually going around having to figure out what's wrong with this picture and helping the people in a bad situation from the shadows. So someone who put this all together just wanting to destroy everything, he must think that it has all gone completely wrong. What Joshua is angry about is what the Japanese called hikikomori. These people aren't otaku. They are not introverted geeks either. No, hikikomori are people who never leave their homes or apartments. They never form real relationships, and they rarely, if ever, contribute anything to society. In a Christian viewpoint, you can say these people are burying their talent, and that is angering Joshua here. If you don't understand that reference, basically it's a parable that Jesus told, and one of my favorite ones. Basically, a rich and kind master was leaving on a very long trip. Wanting to make sure his assets were taken care of, he called his 3 servants together and gave them all giant slabs of silver called talents. These things are very heavy and very hard to bury, and they're basically worth what an average person, an average day laborer, would probably make in his lifetime when it comes to what people made back in those days. To his hardest working and most competent servant, he gave 5 of these. To his average servant, he gave 3. And finally, to the last one, who was meek, not wanting to put too much pressure on him, but to include him in it as well, he gave him only 1 talent, which made the servant angry at not getting as much as everyone else, as well as feeling inferior, promptly decides to bury it. Anyways, the master comes home after several years and finds out that the 2 that went out and used their talents for work had doubled their profits. He is excited. He lets them keep the profits and then gives them higher positions within his home. He is very happy until he gets to the dumbass at the end and finds out that, well, he went out to the backyard and buried his talent. They get in the fight, and ultimately that servant gets kicked out of the home and becomes homeless. But it's important to understand the master wasn't angry that the man went and lost his fortune. He knew he might not succeed as the others would. It's why he was given less. If it failed, it wouldn't cost the master as much and there wouldn't be any harm done. He's angry that he didn't try to make anything of the opportunity presented to himself. He chose to bury himself and the ability that he possessed away from the world. It's the very message of this game is aimed at, and why the writers have Joshua wanting to punish the world so badly for these transgressions. So anyways, back to the main story. As part of the bet, Joshua gets to choose someone as his proxy. Who does he choose for his proxy? Well, it isn't someone who craved destruction or someone who would be good at the game by building relationships, but rather a sinner who would be bad at his game and someone who he is angry at. And yes, Neku here is definitely a sinner, and he is definitely burying his talent beneath a giant pair of headphones. And while Neku isn't a full-blown hikikomori yet, it will be his final destination on the path that he is deciding to walk on. We see he isn't even trying to serve his community or better himself in any way. He just wants to be stuck in his own world and bury himself underneath those headphones he wears. That's why Joshua chooses him. It's a test to see if the worst of humanity, the worst of the people who are ticking him off, can be changed through his Reaper's game, and if Joshua's way of handling things is the correct way. and if the conductor's plan of stripping humanity from everything is the right way to do it, or if it needs to be reset. This whole thing with Neku is basically a giant test for Joshua. In the end, we do see him do one final test to make sure that everything is in the right order. He offers his composer seat to Neku if he can beat him in one last duel with pistols. And remember, when this all started, Neku was willing to kill Shiki just to get out of the game. Now we see an offer of Neku killing a friend who has majorly betrayed and hurt him, by the way, and with an offer of becoming basically a deity on top of this. And Neku hesitates. He can't bring himself to do it. He still trusts and sees Joshua as a friend. At the end, he passes the test and the game, and Joshua does decide to revive him and all of his friends, including Rhyme. Even though Rhyme did lose the game, he does keep her entry fee, though, so Rhyme is now without any of her hopes and dreams. But if you read some of the backstory to it, you do see that he's confident she'll come up with some new ones. You see, Joshua didn't want Neku to succeed so he could destroy Shibuya. He wanted Neku to succeed so he could be a better person. It's the fact that this game really just strips away this selfish individual at the beginning and rebuilds him as a better person through the narrative that makes this game's story so good. And at the very end, we do see Neku take off his headphones, ready to at least make an attempt to join society. So Joshua's goals have been achieved without having to destroy the city. That's why he spares everyone. His mind wasn't 100% set on it, but he saw it as the only recourse. When Neku succeeds, he sees there's still hopes and he backs off, at least for the time being. We'll just have to see what his role in the sequel will be. Anyways, this is Tommy the Game Master, thanking you for watching this video. If you liked it, please share. If you have any comments on it, feel free to leave it down below. You guys have a wonderful day.